All right, we'll jump right in for questions. We're ready for questions, but we'll start with Grant Ramey.
Coach, 3 years ago, could you have imagined when you got into college coaching that you would make this climb? You'd be on an SEC bench this quickly?
If I told you yes, I would definitely be lying right now. So, not at all.
We'll go Rob Lewis, then Rick Russo.
Coach, I mean, what qualities do you think you have that have, led to that quick ascension up the coaching ladder from high school assistant 3 years ago to being on an SEC bench with a guy that's won 700 games 3 years later?
I think that, the thing that's I even have to tell myself a lot of times is that
727.
I'm here because of
600. A bunch of his are Division II.
My recruiting, my relationships with players. I think that I work extremely hard in player development. I'm less than 10 years from the age of a lot of our guys. Me and Folky were messing around and talking after a few days of me being here. And Folky told me he turned 24 next month. I'm like, wow, I'm only 4 years older than him at that point. So I think that what I'm able to give them, it kind of comes from me. I went through what they were going through not too long ago. So I definitely think I benefit them from that standpoint.
Hey, Coach, welcome to town. To follow up on what Rob was talking about, talk about the ability now, the chance to work under a guy like Rick Barnes.
Nice to meet you too, Rick. Thanks for the welcome also. For me, it's a huge honor. I think that I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, so I grew up in Big 12 country. So obviously, I got to see Rick Barnes at Texas and a lot of his teams, and I watched him a crazy amount throughout the years. So for me, it's kind of working with the guy that could be seen as being an idol of mine for a long time in my life. And it's a complete dream come true for me. My younger cousin, Ishmael Wainwright, played at Baylor. And I remember that when we were kids, he always said he wanted to go to Texas and play for Rick Barnes. So when I got this job, he was blowing my phone up like crazy just because he was in envy that I actually was able to work with Rick Barnes. But I'm excited about learning as much as I can. Coach Barnes, he's definitely done a great job of just taking me under his wing and kind of educating me on a lot of different things, showing me a lot of different things. Obviously you guys know he has stories for days. So those have been great as well for me.
Thank you.
Rob Lewis and Mike Wilson.
Coach, you mentioned just being, 4 years older than Folky, and I'm sure, being kind of the same generation as the players is a benefit in a lot of ways, but how do you kind of, establish that line that, I'm not your buddy, I'm your coach, but still, being friendly and having a good chemistry?
Rob, that actually was like the first question I asked myself, like my first year ever coaching, because a lot of people don't know this. My first ever coaching job, VJ Bailey was on our team. So that was like the second guy I've ever recruited for RM5 League. It was a UIBL team. And I was then 23 years old. And I think at that time he was 17. So I've never not coached in an environment where I'm barely older than the oldest player on the team. Like it's always been the case, whether it's me coaching high school, now me coaching college, I've always been close in age. And I've always found a way to draw that line where, for me, I think that the head coach is always like the dad. It's always going to be a younger assistant that is more like an uncle. And then me, I'm like the older brother, but I'm also the older brother that doesn't play. So I don't play around with our guys. Now, granted, like I invite them over to eat. I'll take them out to lunch. We'll talk, we'll kick, we'll talk about the same music, all different type of things. But at the end of the day, I'm still their coach and I'm an older influence for them. So I think that they understand that I mean business and they know where the line is drawn to where it's a respect level there for me. But it just kind of came natural, honestly, if I'm being honest.
Rod, you mentioned seeing those Rick Barnes teams back when you were in Kansas City. What were your impressions of his teams at that point? And then once you got here, what was the moment where, you kind of mentioned him being that idol for your cousin, but when you realize he's just a kind of goofy college basketball coach at this point and just like everyone else?
I think that those teams I watched, they were all really tough. They were competitive. They were talented, but you never felt like the guys were entitled on his team. You always saw them as hard workers. I mean, he coached probably the best player in the world, and he wasn't out there just jacking up 30 shots a game and playing selfish. He was playing with the team, and his team played to win. And so I always admired that about Coach Barnes. And then, you see him, me being a kid, and you see Rick Barnes, strutting the sideline and coaching these guys hard. And then, I get here, and the first thing he does when I meet him is talk about my suit and how he thought I looked like Buddy Love from Nutty Professor. So I'm like, not as serious as everybody says he is. Okay, cool. But it's been great, though. Honestly, it's been great.
Or Rob Lewis.
Coach, I asked Coach Gainey about this, but obviously, I'm sure you know this, that culture is really important to Coach Barnes, and, building the right culture off the court. What's your perception of that now that you've seen it, and how do you feel like you fit into it? Why do you feel like you were a good fit for him to hire and bring in?
My perception of it is everything that I feel like I'm about, everything that I've always loved and been about. It's competitive, it's strong, it's completely intact. I think there are expectations. There's a line, a standard that everyone has to meet, and it's non-negotiable. Also, it's a hard line, and I love that because I'm a firm believer in adversity, especially for young guys. And I think that's where my age always comes about when I talk to these guys, because I think sometimes, kids have the tendency to be like, well, coach, man, it's different than when you played, and you don't know. And they can't say that to me at all because I'm not that much older than them. So I definitely believe in them being tested and going through wars and battles, because I know nothing is ever handed to you. And I also try to use, the fact that, I'm able to be here at 28 years old. Obviously, I've been in a lot of adverse situations. So for them getting those experiences is going to help them longer in life. And I just believe that that's the best thing that signifies Coach Barnes' culture, because it raises men, not only basketball players, but definitely it raises men.
We'll take one last call for questions.
Hey, Tom, is Coach Barnes still around?
I think he is still in there. Rod, is he still in there with you guys?
He's right here.
Yeah, go ahead and let him jump in there.
I tell you when you got good assistant coaches, they leave their wallet behind with literally $3. I mean, that's incredible. You carry $3. Good gracious.
We all know you need that.
Yeah, well, we know that he's not a very good tipper either.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you, just with losing two guys, how important was it that Mike Schwartz came back? How big of a deal is that? Because I know he had some opportunities.
It's big, Rob. I mean, Mike, as you said, he had opportunities, and he put a lot of thought into it, but he felt like at the time he was right that he come back here, and which was huge because he helped a lot with the hiring of both Justin and Rod. And he, Mike's a huge part of this program, as you guys know. And but having him again stay right now, and again, he's going to get opportunities. I mean, believe me, he's as good as we've ever had. But I really respect him in the fact that he knows that he's got to wait for the right one that fits him. But it was huge at that point in time, because if you really, as you guys continue to get to know Justin and Rod, you're going to find out what Mike found out for me before I even got into conversation with him. And because it's always been important for me that the coaches, it starts there with them, the relationship that they can develop right off the bat. And Mike, through this process, he just told me both. He said, when you talk to both of them, it's going to be, you're going to hit it off with them. And from the time they walked on campus, we knew once they stepped foot in our facility that they were the right guys. But Mike had a lot to do with that, and he's had a lot to do with our program since he's been here. And but going through that time, Rob, I will tell you, it's one thing losing one, maybe two guys, but when you think about losing three guys, that was a time where in my mind, my own mind personally, I was scrambling a lot because I was thinking, well, we can do this, but what happens here? And even though we do keep a short list, I think it was huge for me personally that Mike decided to stay with us.
All right, fantastic. That's a great note to end on. Really appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. Y'all have a great day.